Thank you, and welcome to the Discovering Energy Savings with Treasure Hunts webinar. My name is Walt Tennyson. I'm with the Energy Star Industrial Program, and I'll be your moderator for today. We're really glad you're able to join us, and I sincerely hope everyone is doing okay in these stressful times. If you have ideas and suggestions for ways the Energy Star program can help, please let us know. But hopefully one way we can help is by sharing best practices, which we will be doing from today and on a monthly basis through the end of the year as part of our 2020 Partner of the Year Award Winner webinar series. For more information on that webinar series, you can check out the link below, and it will also be included in information that we send out at the end of this session today. Today's session is a great topic, and we have some excellent speakers with us today. We'll be hearing from Barry Abramson from Servidyne and Tyler Poles from the Des Moines Public Schools. Both Barry and Tyler's organizations have won the Energy Star Partner of the Year Award for Sustained Excellence, which is actually a significant accomplishment, and I encourage you to learn more about their energy programs as well as some of the other energy programs that were awarded the Energy Star Partner of the Year Award in 2020 by checking out the website that's listed there, energystar.gov awards. Unfortunately, this year we are not able to hold our award event, which we usually always hold in April, but I'm glad that we are able to do at least events like this where we can celebrate some of the successful practices of the award-winning companies. Again, my name is Walt Tennyson, and I'm with the Energy Star Industrial Program. And I'm going to start off our presentation today by providing some context about energy treasure hunts within the Energy Star Program and amongst our partner network. The idea of an energy treasure hunt, really originated with Toyota. And they began sharing the approach since they had a lot of success with it with their suppliers, which included actually GE and other Energy Star industrial partners. But it was really during the Great Recession of 2008 that we saw interest amongst industrial partners as well as other industrial partners really adopting the approach to take off. And part of that is because treasure hunts focus on typically non-capital projects. And at that time, a lot of companies just didn't have the resources for doing capital projects. So considering where we are today and where we could be in the future, the relevancy of energy treasure hunts, I think, is still going to be very much the case in terms of a strategy that you can use for your energy program. And what we saw amongst the industrial partners was that companies were really having a lot of success with the approach. And so in 2014, we worked to develop a guidebook to try to document energy treasure hunts as a best practice. And I actually had the opportunity to work with Bruce Bremer, who helped invent the energy treasure hunt at Toyota, to help develop this guide. So the approach that our guide really embodies is the approach that Toyota created. We have then shared that with hundreds of other industrial partners that have used it, and since then many members of the Energy Star Commercial and Industrial Program have helped develop a variety of resources, including treasure maps, detail sheets, and other tools that you can use to conduct an energy treasure hunt. And last year, in order to try to promote the concept to more markets outside of the industrial market and some of the commercial building and other space types that have been using treasure hunts, we launched a campaign called the Find the Treasure in Your Facility campaign. And we had some great success with that campaign last year. There were 35 organizations that participated in this event or this campaign, where we asked people if they did treasure hunts to share what they found in terms of potential energy savings. These organizations that participated in this conducted over 145 treasure hunts, and they found a lot of potential savings, and that translates to not only cost savings, but a lot of greenhouse gas and CO2 reductions as well. You can learn more about some of the organizations that participated in this campaign, as well as see some of the results they achieved by visiting our energystar.gov treasure hunt website and looking at this, what we call baseball card profiles of some of the organizations that participated. And by the way, we're still conducting this campaign, and if you are doing a treasure hunt, well, if you're going to do a treasure hunt maybe sometime in the future, we encourage you to share the results with us, because it helps us show other people that there are a lot of energy efficiency savings out there to be found if you take the time to go out and find them. So what exactly is an energy treasure hunt? Well, what it is usually it's a 1 to 3 day event, often starting or concluding during a period of non-business or operating hours, where you focus on trying to find low and no-cost energy savings opportunities. And what we see, though, is that many people, not only in finding low and low-cost savings, they also will identify other opportunities as well that may require additional study. But the main focus are the low-hanging fruit. Go out there and collect that. One of the key aspects of a treasure hunt, though, is it involves a report out to management. And I think one of the things that has made energy treasure hunts be effective is that at the end of doing the event, you have the people who participated report what they find out to the facilities management or the organizational management, whoever makes the decisions on what needs to be implemented. And you ask them at that point to say, hey, what should we go ahead and move forward on in terms of implementation? And that is one of the key things that we see makes a difference in things like a treasure hunt or even an assessment or audit being more effective in terms of implementation, is that you get the buy-in from the management at that point. The other key thing is that the process really helps to develop internal staff who can be part of your energy team, or if they're already part of your energy team, can help to energize them or get them to maybe look at things in a different way. Plus, it also establishes an action plan for that facility about things you can do. So in some ways, it's fair to say that an energy treasure hunt is really just a rebranded audit or assessment, and to some degree it is, but I can tell you from what I've heard from hundreds of companies that simply using the term treasure hunt is a lot less threatening to employees than coming in and saying we're going to audit you, because oftentimes people are concerned that audits or assessments are really there to look for problems and may result in headcount reductions, and I think certainly in this time that we're in now, that is not a message we want to be sending as an energy manager. So you focus on opportunities and you involve people, often even the people who may be responsible for the problem, as being part of the solution. You use that approach to help build a team mentality. That's part of what an energy treasure hunt is about. And as I mentioned before, you're also typically looking for operational and behavioral opportunities versus larger capital or major retrofits, although sometimes those things get identified as well. So with that, I'm going to let our speakers tell you even more about treasure hunts and also how they have adapted treasure hunts, because it is a process and there are many different ways you can execute it, and you can expand it to include other issues like water and safety as well. And the key thing is to adapt it for your organizational culture. So with that, we're going to start with Tyler, and he's going to talk about how they've used treasure hunts in a couple interesting different ways in Des Moines, the public schools. And so Tyler, I'm going to pass the baton over to you, and you can share with us what you guys are doing with treasure hunts.
Cool, thank you, Walt. I'm Tyler Pulse, and I'm happy to be on today to talk about Des Moines Public Schools and our experience with treasure hunts and some of the successes that we've had over the years. Before I get started, I'd like to take a little bit of time to talk about our school district and our relationship with Energy Star. This slide shows our mission as a district. I included it today because sometimes we get so caught up in the what that we forget about the why. As a school district, we have to focus on the students that come into our buildings to develop and learn. Des Moines is the capital city of Iowa, and our district covers approximately 80 square miles. We're the largest school district in the state and maintain more than 6 million square feet under roof. The average age of our buildings is over 65 years old. However, we have made significant mechanical improvements within all of our buildings over the last 20 years. The district educates over 33,000 students and employs over 4,900 staff members. DMPS has partnered with Energy Star since 2008 when we certified our first facility. Using Energy Star tools and resources has been invaluable as we have focused on energy efficiency and saving taxpayer dollars. Our partnership with Energy Star has significantly reduced our energy usage. As this chart shows, we've been able to operate our buildings very efficiently and have worked to keep kBTU per square feet below 50 for the last 5 years. I'd like to talk about how we've used treasure hunts in our buildings. We've used treasure hunts or similar exercises for over 3 years now, and they prove to be a valuable opportunity to explore facilities and determine savings opportunities. The process of completing treasure hunts has changed for us since we began doing them. At first, we had the attitude to try and evaluate multiple buildings at one time. This proved to be cumbersome, and our team wasn't able to focus enough on each facility. We've since changed to focus only on one facility at a time and cut down on the number of people involved. We used to include around 10 to 12 people in the tabletop portion of the hunt to have an answer for every question that arose. Now we've trimmed that number down to around 5 to 7 just to keep things more on task. Due to our size, taking the time to focus on one building at a time has allowed us to find items that have been missed in the past. Items that treasure hunts have helped us capture that may have been historically overlooked range from set points within the building's automation system to air handlers not working when everybody believes they're on. Taking a look at the calendar and setting aside the time to complete a treasure hunt allows us to get out of the fire truck mentality where we always seem to rush to fix the problem that's on someone's mind. This slide shows the process that we go through when completing a treasure hunt. The first step for us is to determine which facility to target. By tracking our utility usage, we're able to quickly see which facilities are increasing or decreasing usage over the previous year. Facilities where we notice an increase typically head to the top of the list to complete a treasure hunt. Prior to meeting or inspecting a site, it's important for someone to compile the information related to the building and have it ready to answer questions that come up during the meeting. Next, we have the meeting to discuss the facility and potential causes of that increase. It always seems amazing to me that in these meetings, when an item is mentioned and someone else in the room has an aha moment and can tie an event or work ticket to that energy usage increase. I found meetings are a lot more productive when we focus only on the building being discussed, and we don't point fingers at each other or other departments for those mistakes. The biggest opportunity is correcting that problem and then installing safeguards to try and prevent the issue from happening in the future. During the walkthrough, it is important to remember that all projects are not extremely challenging or labor-intensive. The majority of items found during a treasure hunt can be corrected immediately or with minimal labor. Many times during the walkthrough, we have seen things that seem like common sense to our team, but building occupants don't seem to understand. Putting a heat generating source like a mini fridge next to the thermostat typically makes the heating system seem worthless to the occupant, and they're disappointed the space is always cold. It's rather easy, though, to help move that item or educate the occupant to improve their situation. Information and education go a long way in making buildings run effectively. I found it very helpful to use a checklist to make sure that everything is covered during the walkthrough. As the process moves forward, a completed checklist makes things a lot easier to understand when reviewing the walkthrough. It's easy during the walkthrough to try and make mental notes, but I highly recommend writing those notes down. From our experience, there have been buildings that we've walked where it didn't really feel like there were a lot of things blatantly obvious to improve upon. These buildings are challenging, however, the idea of a treasure hunt, we can always find something small to correct. Next for us is the evaluation stage. Potential projects are evaluated based on energy and money savings. We've been lucky in the fact that our local utility has provided incentives to complete energy efficiency projects. We use energy modeling as a tool on larger projects, and modeling helps provide a clearer picture of the project and allows for easier discussions with upper management to get approval for projects. Once a project is approved, we finally get to install the equipment and make the changes within the facility. This is the most rewarding part for me personally, as people seem to appreciate the fact that we're out there helping them. Following implementation, it's valuable to reflect on the process, determine what went right and what can be improved. Whether it comes from a consultant or internally, I recommend taking a few moments to document the process and write down the changes made and lessons learned. As additional facilities are completed, the whole idea of treasure hunts seemed to get easier and easier. Now that you understand our process, I'd like to walk everyone through a treasure hunt exercise we completed at East High School. East High is one of our largest facilities at 345,000 square feet, and therefore one of the largest users of electricity throughout energy throughout our district. High energy usage and complexity of the building made it an ideal candidate for a treasure hunt. For us, this project started in December 2018, and we finished implementing projects in July 2019. Due to the many different additions and types of HVAC equipment throughout the building, it took a lot of time to understand. Organizing files and tying the equipment to the spaces in preparation for the meeting took quite a bit of effort. Getting everyone on the team up to speed with building schedules and the labeling system within the building automation system seemed to take the most time during the meeting. And during the research and meeting stage of the treasure hunt, it was identified that some set points and operator overrides needed to be adjusted or removed. The tabletop meeting helped everyone to get a good sense of the building without actually being on site. Following the meeting, a walkthrough was completed. A number of savings opportunities were identified, including door seals and LED lighting. On the right of the screen are some snips from the checklist that we used during the process that guided us to have a successful treasure hunt. For us, this is also a place where it's convenient to note damage and vandalism that's identified so that work tickets can be issued to correct those problems. We evaluated and completed a number of projects at East High, including LED upgrades in the gym and library, as well as repairs and balancing to rooftop air handlers. However, I would like to focus on one project in particular. Earlier in the process, we identified a constant volume air handler that used VAV boxes to condition a wing of the building. If the space didn't call for conditioned air, it was dumped to the return above the ceiling. During the walkthrough, some staff in this wing let us know they felt they weren't getting as much conditioned air as their neighbors. We felt there may be potential energy savings if we could slow down the air handler and provide only the amount of air needed to condition the spaces. One option was to replace the VAV boxes entirely to eliminate the dumping of conditioned air into the return. And the option two meant modifying the boxes so they didn't dump the return, but also adding flow sensing devices that allowed us to control the speed of the air handler. We used a consultant and our local utility program to model potential energy savings and determine available rebates. It was determined modifying the existing boxes was the most economical. The next step in the process was implementing this project. We used multiple contractors to modify the VAV boxes, installed a new high-efficient electric motor with VFD on the air handler, and balanced the airflow throughout this wing. This project was great for us financially, as you can see. With the utility rebates, this project will have paid for itself within 2 years. These savings are directly tied to discussions and information that we discovered during our treasure hunt. After projects are implemented and during the process, it is important to reflect on how things went. At East High, we decreased energy usage while increasing our occupant comfort. Walking the facility gave us an opportunity to see areas previously missed during the first pass of upgrading to LED lighting. It helped us identify HVAC issues that would have cost our district thousands of dollars if it had gone unnoticed. Looking back, I think one of the things we could have improved upon during the process is possibly breaking the building up into separate wings or essentially facilities due to its size. Of course, this has its own set of challenges because a building needs to work together as a system, but because of its size, it was sometimes hard to focus on the smaller details, and we got wrapped up in the larger systems of the building. A different way that we have used treasure hunts was to complete an LED treasure hunt. As a district, it is our goal to be 100% LED. At the time of the treasure hunt, approximately 96% of interior square footage had been converted to LED. It was challenging for us to identify in our facilities what smaller areas needed to be updated. During the first pass through a building, we attempted to catch everything, but it never failed. Something was usually missed. I was frequently getting messages about non-LED lighting someone found in a custodian storage locker or something along those lines. We designed a treasure hunt activity to engage building staff and identify these obscure areas that still needed to be replaced. We used a variety of electronic and verbal communication to direct our building chiefs to an electronic questionnaire. The questionnaire allowed them to write in the areas and the basic fixture types. It also gave them an opportunity to mark that their building was 100% LED. We got a fairly good response from the questionnaire, as nearly half of the building chiefs responded. From my discussions with the chiefs, they thought it was a good exercise, and they enjoyed the idea of hunting around their buildings and essentially trying to find areas we missed during the initial pass. We provided a beverage tumbler to the chiefs that participated as a token of our appreciation, and their work helped us build a concise list of areas where we needed to send an electrician and made finding the remaining lighting a lot more streamlined process. Currently, approximately 99% of our interior square footage has been converted to LED. So I've attached a few photos here of some treasures we've found during our walkthroughs. On the left here is an ice pack on a thermostat. Evidently this space, they felt they needed some more heat. And then on the right here is the refrigerator next to a thermostat example I described earlier. They couldn't understand why the VRF system was always blowing cold air when it was 10 degrees outside. On the left here is a blocked heat pump. Space within classrooms is always critical. The piling stuff in front of and on top of console heat pumps is a sure way to make sure the occupants are uncomfortable, and it's most likely going to shorten the lifespan of that unit. On the right here is a contraband heater. I included this example because this person's office had a shared thermostat. They were extremely comfortable in their space, however their coworkers weren't comfortable at all as the unit tried to overcome the heat from the space heater and was blowing cold air out on their coworkers. In conclusion, remember that when completing treasure hunts, it is important to involve the appropriate people, look to solve problems, focus on one item at a time, and don't forget the solutions aren't always complex. I've attached my contact information here, and feel free to reach out to me if there are any questions. I'll turn it back over to Walt, and he'll introduce Barry.
Thanks, Tyler. And we've gotten some great questions, and I just wanted to note that we'll do all the questions after we hear from Barry. But I think a couple of the questions that have come up, Barry will actually address, because there were a couple of questions regarding who do you involve on your treasure hunt team, as well as bringing in some outside consultants. And Barry is an outside consultant, so he can give you his perspective on that. And Tyler, if you could just pass the baton over to Barry to give him the controls, that'd be great.
It's not working as we practiced.
There we go.
Yeah.
And Barry, if you're muted, you'll just need to unmute your phone.
Okay, am I here now?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, great. Well, thanks, Walt. And before we get into this presentation, and as Walt said, this is going to take a different vantage point coming from a consultant's perspective. But I did just want to reflect on Tyler's presentation. I really loved it. A couple of things, those pictures were really priceless. And I do want to just point out, in case people missed it, Tyler mentioned a contraband heater, which was a heater that's not supposed to be there. But the contraband concept does tie into the whole treasure hunt and pirate theme. So didn't want people to lose sight of that. Also, I really liked the way that Tyler and the Des Moines School District adapted treasure hunts to develop their own LED treasure hunts. I think that was really creative, and it looks like it was very effective. So moving into the consultant's perspective, I want to first give you some background on Cervidine. This is a graphic novel representation of our celebration this year of our Energy Star Partner of the Year Award. So we've been an Energy Star Partner for about 20 years, and this was our 18th Partner of the Year Award. We celebrated it quite differently than we had in any previous years. Unfortunately, we weren't all together in Washington, D.C., but we still had our celebration illustrated in this cartoon. We are, by background on Cervidine, we're an energy and sustainability consulting firm based in Atlanta, Georgia. And we've really enjoyed our partnership with Energy Star over the years and look forward to continuing that into the future. So, and just a side note, the artist, or the cartoonist for this is one of our engineers, Jamie Kono, who also conducted the treasure hunts that I'm going to be describing. So she's a multi-talented member of our team. So to get started, Pirates and Pandemics, Part 1. I'm going to have the theme of Pirates and Pandemics both be a thematic approach for this presentation, as well as there's some very specific content that's related that I'll be bringing out later. But to begin with, I was trying to figure out, is there some kind of link between treasure hunts and the current pandemic we're in, the pirate theme, and I did some in-depth research on Wikipedia and found that there actually is a connection between pirates and pandemics. Back during the days of the bubonic plague, ships that had people on board that had the plague and were therefore quarantined flew the black and yellow checkered flag that you see on the left. And then over the years, it morphed into having a skull and crossbones on it, and the pirate flag, the Jolly Roger black flag with skull and crossbones, was attributed to using the black from that quarantine flag as a symbol of death. So there we have it. We're ready for the theme for this entire presentation. So to get into the perspective of the consultant on a treasure hunt, really focuses on what the difference is between a treasure hunt and an energy audit. And Walt spoke to this very well in his introduction, that There's some features that are similar, but then there are some very important distinctions. And coming at this from the standpoint of a consultant, we really had to have this in our mind first and foremost, because our sort of default mode, our go-to approach when we go to a building is, okay, we're doing an energy audit, and we just sort of follow suit. But in approaching treasure hunts, we really had to look at this particular guidance document published on the Energy Star website that describes how to do a treasure hunt, and it highlights at the beginning treasure hunts versus audits, two key differences. And I have boxed in these the summaries of these two differences. So first of all, treasure hunts focus on quick fixes. We also look for quick fixes in audits, but we're also, we're looking for everything we can find, and we're really honing in a lot on retrofit measures as well. So that's a good contrast to keep in mind, that when you're doing a treasure hunt, the real central goal is to find quick fixes, short payback items, and things like that. The second summary of a contrast, treasure hunts strike a positive, optimistic tone. Now this, I must say, honestly, I took a little bit of offense to, because what's in contrast to a positive, optimistic tone that seemingly is being said to characterize an energy audit? A negative, pessimistic tone? So after getting over the emotional distress of reading this, we realized that there's a point here. It's not that energy audits are negative and pessimistic, but as Walt said, they can come off threatening to the building team, because here's this outside consultant coming in and is going to tell us what we're doing wrong, or why they know everything better than we do, and they're going to tell us how to run our building. So the treasure hunt, the whole process, is really a refreshing approach where that element is undermined, even with a consultant involved. So what is the consultant's role in a treasure hunt? Well, I'm going to describe to you what our approach was, and then I'll tell you about some treasure hunts that we conducted for a particular client and how that went. But first of all, we had to come up with our mantra, and we had to keep saying to ourselves, not an audit, not an audit, not an audit. And that was sort of our overall guidepost. The starting point with a treasure hunt is engaging, and it's collaborating with the other members of the treasure hunt team. This is particularly important for a consultant to keep in front of mind, that we were there to facilitate the conversation, to help throw in our perspective, but we were trying not to be the dominant element, where we just have some other folks following us around. The other thing which I mentioned was we focus on quick fixes, but also we don't want to miss other opportunities. So while this is not seeking to find retrofit and capital measures, if there are things that are observed during the walkthrough of the treasure hunt, those are important things to note and keep in mind for the future. Another really important aspect to the approach of a treasure hunt is discussing the findings and the next steps on the spot. So it's having a closeout meeting, so to speak, a sit down around the table, as was mentioned earlier, to talk about what everyone saw and what can be acted on that basis. And then finally, what we decided to do was to follow up with a one-page letter, and it was difficult as a consultant to keep the letter to one page, but that was our dictate, that basically was aimed at reinforcing the experience of the treasure hunt, giving the client team the basis to continue to move forward through the process of implementing measures that were not able to be implemented immediately in the aftermath. So that was our approach. That's kind of how we looked at going into these things. And then I'm going to talk about how we actually tested this concept. So we picked a client, Parmenter Realty Partners, is a real estate office building owner with assets primarily in the southeast of the country. And we picked 8 of their office buildings that were clustered in 3 metropolitan areas. So Dallas area, Atlanta area, and Orlando area. And the reason that we picked these, well, there were several reasons. For the most part, these were buildings that were in multi-building properties. So there might be 3 similar buildings managed by the same property team in one of these locations. And that way we had ability to sort of expand the findings beyond a specific building, and it could be transferred to multiple buildings and kind of got more coverage that way. The other sort of background factor here is that the 8 buildings totaled just under 2 million gross square feet, and it included a mix of buildings with high and low Energy Star scores. So, and that was important because another reason we picked these locations was to see if we could find out from doing treasure hunts what might be the differences between the buildings that otherwise seemed similar in terms of their energy performance. In terms of timing, so we conducted the treasure hunts concurrently with our Energy Star licensed professional verification site visits. So because, you know, there might have been a 3-building complex, maybe 1 building was eligible for Energy Star certification, so we scheduled to do our site visit for the verification of that building's application, and at that same time, we did the treasure hunt at that whole property. And so that's sort of what was our strategy for approaching these properties. We conducted these treasure hunts in September and October of 2019, and we did walkthroughs during occupied and unoccupied periods of time. The teams typically included 4 people. There was the building engineer, the property manager, the assistant property manager, and a representative from Server9. And the cost for these was 0. What we decided was that we did not want to make a consultant fee an obstacle to having this client actually try out some treasure hunts and, you know, see what the benefit was. We were able to do that because we did schedule these concurrently with our other visits to the same location, so it wasn't a big financial burden to Server9 to do these at no cost. But we think that also enhanced the overall experience for everyone involved. And now looking at the findings. So at a high level, there were 52 opportunities identified in the 8 buildings. The overall savings potential of these measures totaled or averaged 5% over the usage of the buildings. And the table on this slide shows some examples of some of the quick fix type measures that were identified, along with the annual kilowatt-hour electricity savings that were estimated for these measures and the corresponding cost savings for those kilowatt hours. So some similar things to what Tyler described, some air handling unit schedule adjustments. That was probably the biggest single opportunity. There was one building that had some challenges operating after hours for a few tenants where they were trying to figure out what was the most efficient way to operate at a really minimum load. So collectively came up with some approaches there that had significant savings potential. number of lighting controls issues, occupancy sensors that weren't working, or lack of switches in accessible locations, things like that, which resulted in lights being left on during unoccupied periods. Saturday on-demand HVAC. So this was a building that was considering, instead of operating from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. every Saturday, actually requiring tenants to request Saturday air conditioning and not charging them for it because they are due it per their lease, but not running the building or parts of the building just because it says that in the lease, but actually only doing it on demand. Other things that were opportunities identified were looking at the set points for static pressures and for temperatures in their HVAC systems, and coming up with approaches to adjust those set points based on the ability to fine-tune some things. And then finally, there was a building that had one floor that was totally vacant, but they were operating it as if it were occupied. So came up with a strategy to go into an unoccupied setback mode. You couldn't just shut the whole floor off all day, but had to come up, again, collectively with a collaborative approach. What's the best way to operate this floor, to keep it within the parameters to protect the building and prevent mold while still saving energy. So that's kind of a quick rundown of the types of quick fixes. One thing you might notice if you do your arithmetic in your head is if you look at the dollars versus the kilowatt hour columns, you might have noticed that they don't all wind up with the same cost per kilowatt hour. So you can see that, like, the AHU schedule adjustment, $7,000 and 175,000 kilowatt hours, it's, well under 10 cents. It's under 5 cents a kilowatt hour. Similarly with the next line item, if you go down to the bottom item, the unoccupied floor setback, $1,700 for 12,000 kilowatt hours, that's well over 10 cents a kilowatt hour, and so it's about 15 cents a kilowatt hour. So you might say, well, I screwed up the math on this. But actually, this is an important point. Not all measures save energy at the same time, and the price of electricity and its effective price based on whether the measure is reducing peak demand can have a big difference in the cost calculation. So the unoccupied floor setback mode at the bottom, that was daytime, mid-daytime energy that was impacting the building's peak. So that savings of kilowatt hours is more valuable per kilowatt hour than shaving a few hours off the AHU schedule in the early morning or end of the day, or Saturday on-demand HVAC, which are off-peak periods. So this is something that's often missed, and it might not be that important for the treasure hunt because who cares if you're off by 100% even. These are quick fix things and you're going to do them anyway. But this does speak to one reason why a consultant can be a useful part of the team, because the appreciation for how the electric rates work is not always taken into account when you're translating energy into dollars. Okay, so moving into Pirates and Pandemics Part 2, Unlocking the Treasure Chest. So it takes one thing to find the treasure chest, but how do you really unlock all the savings that are in those treasure chests and get the real value out of them to the max? Well, this is a story of how the pandemic actually was a multiplier on the savings that were found during this treasure hunt. So not only is the virus multiplying, the savings actually multiplied in this situation. So we found that most of the quick fix measures were addressing energy waste during unoccupied periods. And since mid-March, a lot of buildings have been experiencing extended unoccupied periods. So the measures that were identified during the treasure hunts could not just be applied during those previous unoccupied periods, but now are much more widely applicable. So, for one example, the item that was at the bottom of the table on the previous slide, the unoccupied floor setback mode, at that point when we calculated it for the treasure hunt, it was worth about $1,700 per year to deal with that one floor. Well, after that, in mid-March, they were able to apply the same strategy to 28 floors, which turned the $1,700 per year into $1,700 every 2 weeks.
Hey, Barry, you're cutting out a little bit.
Okay. Sorry about that. Is this any better? Well, let me just keep going. So another example was the after-hours minimum chiller load. Again, that was applicable to much fewer hours than it became after the mid-March reduced occupancy. So the buildings had measures that were ready to be implemented on a widespread basis immediately. And the value of this can be seen in this slide, where this is an example of the electric demand profiles for 2 buildings. These were not the ones that the treasure hunts were at, another client, which shows in the solid green line the demand profile for the week, a week after building occupancy dropped. This is the week of April 5th to 11th. And the dotted green line is the building's demand profile the week of March 1st to 7th. So you can see the graph at the top shows a building that was able to really reduce its usage based on reduced occupancy versus the building in the bottom graph, which was only able to shave a little bit off. And finally, I want to do one last closing point on Pirates and Pandemics Part 3, Avoiding Davy Jones's Locker. So one of the negatives of an energy audit is that the audit report typically becomes buried treasure, never to be found. And that's one of the disappointing things about being an energy consultant, is that oftentimes our reports wind up not being fully utilized. So the Energy Star Treasure Hunt addresses this, this problem by focusing on a discussion among those who can take action right at the end of the treasure hunt itself. And you can determine what needs to be done immediately, what can be done in the very near term, and then what can be incorporated into longer range plans. And finally, just to look at what these properties were able to implement immediately and in the near term, most of the quick fix items were completed right away, including the unoccupied modes that were expanded much further beyond what we had imagined originally. There are several other measures that are currently being planned, and then we did identify some LED retrofit opportunities along the way that are under consideration. So that wraps it up for me. I'll hand it back over to Walt.
Thanks, Barry. And so we've got some time for questions and answers. We've gotten some great questions here, and we can run a little over 3 if that's all right with people. But if your question was not addressed, or if you would like some more information, you're welcome to reach out to me, and I will follow up with you or follow up with our speakers to get back with you, because we would like to make sure that everyone's comments or questions are addressed.